The year is 2026, and humanity is on the brink of another world war after being deeply impacted by the Great Economic Recession. An entire generation stands between.
Hang on. Sorry to interrupt your doomsday parade, but firstly, the year is 2022, and just because last time Uranus was in Taurus there was a world war because of a lengthy economic depression, doesn't actually mean we're headed for the same fate. Hey everyone, my name is Simon and I support and empower people through these times of radical change. And in today's video, I'm going to take you on a journey and we're going to explore this Uranus in Taurus transit, the 2018 to 2026 edition. Okay, so firstly, let's look at the planet Uranus. Uranus was actually discovered by a person called William Herschel in 1781, and he used a telescope to identify this heavenly body. Now you got to think about it. At this time, our understanding of our solar system ended at Saturn. So the discovery of Uranus reflects to us the expansion of our consciousness. So when we use a telescope, we accelerate our image of things, right? So just the nature of Uranus' discovery tells us a lot about this planet. It is an acceleration in our consciousness. So Uranus actually reflects the acceleration of our own consciousness and the technological advancements that we have in our lives. Pretty profound. Now, the archetype of Taurus reflects to us the instinct to survive. So every living organism, right, our bioform, has an instinct in it to understand what it needs to survive. We call this our essential needs. So without air and oxygen, we die. Without water, plants can't survive. So deeply embedded in the organism of life is an instinct for survival. And this translates in our human psychology as the need for self-preservation, the need to preserve. And this is what Taurus represents, the body and the sustainability of it. And so self-reliance, self-preservation, self-sustainability, these are themes that are deeply entrenched in the Taurus archetype. This is what it teaches us. It also associates ourselves with our genome and our DNA because of its relationship to Scorpio. Okay, so now that we've got a good understanding of how these archetypes work, let's take a quick history lesson and go back to the last time Uranus was in Taurus. So let's take a look at the Great Depression. It's important to note, though, that this economic downturn did not actually begin with the Uranus in Taurus. In fact, it was Chiron and the North Node in Taurus that was setting the stage for what was about to take place over the next 10, 11 years. Now, Uranus did join this party in 1934, and you can see how it is shaped in our collective memory of those events when there was extreme scarcity around food, there was rationalization of food, there was economic struggles, and you can see the themes of self-preservation, self-sustainability. We had to think of new ways to be able to restart the economic structure of the industrialized world. Meanwhile, in Europe, the word eugenics was actually becoming a popular buzzword, and this simply means a set of beliefs and practices aimed at the improvement of the genetic material of a population. Now, at the time, the rise of a political party run by Adolf Hitler had taken the word eugenics and actually taken it to the extreme. This is a political party that decided to create the ultimate race, the Aryan race, and would use science, Uranus, to actually do experiments on the bodies of people to be able to extract a gene or find the gene that would allow for the expansion of the Aryan race. So it would go from the sterilization of people who had very bad genes to the experiments like Joseph Mengele did on twins in Auschwitz. Another example of this on the opposite side of the scale was where you saw Joseph Stalin's communism, Russia, come into play. And what was really profound about this was the scarcity of food, the rationing, the poverty that would materialize. This is the darker side of what actually took place at this time. And you can see both of these spectrums created a deep trauma that actually exists within the collective today. It's only less than 100 years ago this took place. So it's no wonder that a lot of us fear the way that political parties go in directions because of these past experiences. So it's something to think about while Uranus is in Taurus at the moment, and we're seeing how politically divided people are at this point. So I really want to get back to 2022, to be honest. How do I get out of this thing? Oh, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. Of course, I forgot about it. Now, how does it actually know where I am? Oh, of course, I used the GPS. Thanks, Mark. All right, let's go back to 2022. Oh, okay, I'm glad to be back in 2022, but I don't recommend time travel to anybody. It's very disorientating. Whew. So how do we actually see Uranus in Taurus today? And I think the first thing that we can actually look at is the most recent experience of 2020 to 2022, where we've just been coming out of a global pandemic. And one of the things to note here is what Uranus and Taurus really did. It brought through from the deepest essence of our being, our collective body, fear, the fear of death, the fear of this existential threat that was in the air but invisible. And you could have seen the spectrum of how people dealt with this fear emerging into the collective. What was really profound was the different responses. And in many ways, you could see how science stepped in and said, we have this advanced technology that could mutate your genetic material. And if you took this genetic material altering mechanism, you would be prevented and protected from it. This also spurred on the debate on the other side of, is this true? Can I trust it? How do I know that it's safe? These discourses were so pronounced in the collective over the last 2 years that it was everywhere. Any person was embodying the experience of the fear of this existential risk and how it showed how we dealt with it individually, and how governmental structures were able to respond to this based on paradigms of thinking that were a little bit more archaic than, say, how people would have dealt with it today. Think about it. We didn't have social media for a long period of time. Social media contributed a great deal to how information was being distributed to the collective. Another thing to look at is the emergence of the World Economic Forum. And this type of conversation that's taking place in the world right now, if you know about the Economic Forum, you'll see that there is a huge drive to completely change the economic structure of our society. And it's based on the realization of many things like existential risks, supply chains breaking down, and in many ways, probably an organized great reset, the great reset of our society. This is another Uranus theme. The only difference here between Uranus and Taurus in the 1930s and Uranus and Taurus here is that Pluto's in Capricorn here, whereas Pluto was in Cancer. At that time, it had a lot to do with our race and our identity. This time around, it has to do with our society, Capricorn. Another theme that also is playing out in the collective right now regarding Uranus and Taurus is people like Elon Musk, who is, in a sense, wanting to colonize Mars. You can see this Uranus and Taurus theme, right? Wanting to detach himself from Earth and expand our body of presence, our consciousness. But at the same time, maybe also questioning the way that we live on this planet and seeing our survivability and our sustainability here. Of course, energy is at the hot topic right now. The way that energy operates, the way that the energy crisis is materializing in Europe, and the constant conflict between Ukraine and Russia. These themes are, again, also deeply impacting the way that we can survive, showing us our vulnerability and our dependencies, thinking about supply chains and how our attachments to products and commodities on a global stage. So you can see there's quite a lot to think about that Uranus and Taurus is bringing to us. So I would say that what's really profound about the potential of Uranus and Taurus going forward is humanity's relationship to artificial intelligence. And I think this will be another very potent conversation and discourse in the collective around who will want to assimilate themselves into an AI world, and those that feel a necessary resistance towards it and living out more of a life that is organic and natural in the world. So in conclusion, I think that we are on a knife's edge regarding many of the themes that I've talked about in this video. And I think one of the challenges that we will face throughout the next coming years is the relationship between the rights and needs of the individual as they're weighed against the greater concerns of a society. And I think 2020 and 2021 really emphasizes this question. So I encourage you to watch this video over here, which will go in depth in how we actually relate to existential threat. And this video over here will talk to you more about how the future is being reshaped based on this Uranus transit.